Welcome to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs here with Anthony Bishop, Jamie Soden, and George Ortega, and we're going to talk about how we can forgive people for their past mistakes because we understand that they weren't really up to them in the first place. Since we understand people aren't really to blame, we no longer um, hold a grudge against people and seek revenge against them. We can still look at the prior causes that led them to do something and help people not do the same things, but at a certain level, either we're able to help these people and get along with them, and other times you have to shake it off. But basically, I think that this understanding that we don't have free will enables us to have a message of forgiveness under the deterministic view that that a lot of religions, for example, they talk about forgiveness. A lot of people talk about forgiveness, but it's never done right. And here's what I mean: it's like you should forgive because if you don't forgive, God will not forgive you and will punish you in hell.
It's kind of emotional blackmail because it's saying they'll only be forgiven if they're obedient to some,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
unproven
will
deity.
punish you, and it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and so but
Yeah,
how I
and
was
Chandler, besides that, so like, even if they're not using it as a kind of extortive, motive, the other part of this is that, like, basically we're taught to forgive because it's the moral thing to do, because it's the right thing
yeah
to do. Whereas, like, what we're advocating is like, wait a minute, if there are certain causes in a person's life that were responsible for their doing whatever they did, then ultimately, actually, forgiveness isn't even necessary because it becomes irrational, based on their lack of fundamental accountability.
exactly, and so it's the logical thing to do. It's the thing that we should do because it's insane to be blaming them. And like one of the definitions of forgiveness is to stop blaming in my word web dictionary. And you stop blaming somebody when you realize they're not the cause of whatever you're mad at them for anyway. And so yeah, that's the thing is rather than it being, well, this is the thing you must do because God commands you to forgive. Instead, it's like, oh well, you forgive because you're not blaming them. It's just simple once you have this understanding, and so it's better than anything that is offered as forgiveness anywhere else. It's really amazing.
Chandler, I
And
think
if you,
you also
oh,
make a
no.
good point. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I was saying as well. Like, say if someone, you can forgive someone, and you can't forgive yourself, then what's the point of actually forgiving them? Because you need to forgive yourself before you can forgive someone else in that perspective view of it. Because otherwise, it's not going to get you anywhere. You'll just be in the same place, stuck in the same place.
And all right, so like also think about the rationale for forgiveness. Basically, religions and societies teach forgiveness because they understand that we humans are fundamentally flawed. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We're not completely moral agents. So basically, that they're basically presenting forgiveness for the same rationale, for the same reason as we're basically advocating, no blame, because again, the person, didn't create themselves, wasn't fundamentally responsible for who they became.
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, a lot of religions, they teach forgiveness, and yet and that they're not often given the rationale. Like that's what we're saying. It's reasons is that you understand people make mistakes, they aren't to blame. Whereas it seems like the way I
I
was
know.
taught
I'm just
growing
listening.
up is like, well, people are to blame. They are accused for their sins, but you have to forgive them, otherwise you're sinning. So
Talking.
it's a different paradigm, and I'm still.
Oh.
Yeah, it sounded like people were talking in the background wherever George was. Okay, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
He's in
mean,
Manhattan. Come on.
people they presume that if you forgive someone and stuff, if it's like a form of weakness to forgive them and stuff. But then you're making yourself stronger in that way because you're relying on your ability to give yourself morals in that perspective view. I think, to be honest.
Huh.
Or when we discuss this no free will paradigm, some people get the wrong idea about it, and they think that we're excusing them. No, we're not excusing their wrongs. What we're saying is it will just be illogical to repeat what they did.
Yeah. I mean, in that way, if we can forgive people like that, then surely we can move forward and just get on with our lives instead of blaming other people for their ignorance when it's nothing to do with them and it's to do with the non-free will, us not having free will at all.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to some people on Twitter, right, who support the death penalty and stuff, right? Like this one person, right, called Un-American Otaku. I mean, I reckon this person said to me in the past that if you commit a murder, you deserve to die and stuff. And I was trying to tell him about the free will stuff and all that. I mean, death penalty supporters, they come up with a rationale where if you kill the killer, if you kill someone who murdered someone, then you have closure, and that's from a death penalty supporter claim. George, do you get that?
Well, actually, there's some research done on that. It depends. Like, for example, settlers from England and Scotland who settled in the United States, if they happen to have come from Scotland, who they were like basically they bred sheep and cattle, herdings and all. They tended to be more about revenge because, like, I think the nature of their work called upon them that if somebody stole their sheep and they didn't do anything about it, then that was really actually very harmful for their future and all. So, but then there are other people who like grew up with agriculture who didn't have that concern. So that for them, this kind of like vengeance and revenge was unnecessarily hostile. And so like even those kinds of approaches have causes based on like how they, who the people were that actually, emigrated to certain regions of, at least here in the United States.
Huh.
But absolutely, and the idea is that, like, ordinarily, for most cases, revenge is just not necessary. It's counterproductive because then it leads to more vengeance from the other side in a circle of often increasing aggression.
And more deaths and stuff.
Yeah. I think revenge is illogical. Even under a free will paradigm, it still doesn't help anything because then somebody hurts you, so then you hurt them, but then they're mad at you because you hurt them, and they've forgotten that they hurt you and started it anyway, and so it just keeps going on, and people keep fighting and fighting and killing everybody. That's what revenge does. It destroys the world, and so it's just totally harmful. Plus, it makes no sense under the no free will paradigm at all.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Gary when he was in the podcast one time, he was saying that we should kill criminals because they consume taxpayers' money and stuff. But the thing is, I don't think it's read into enough statistics because the appeals process costs a lot of money for death row, like cases and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Guys, how would you distinguish between? Go ahead, Chandler.
oh no, you go ahead, George.
All right, here's a question. Revenge generally isn't the right or the smart thing to do, but then how do we distinguish between vengeance and self-defense? In other words, like if somebody's aggressing against another person, a bully, or in some way, aside from the law that actually uses punishment as a tool for motivating appropriate behavior, how do we respond to this as individuals, within the no free will paradigm? In other words, like when is there a case for self-defense, that may, you know, again, like lead to our having to harm someone um, out of necessity, not out of desire for vengeance.
Yeah, so you're asking like how would we know the difference between the two?
Yeah, but if it's a life or
Exactly.
death, if it's a life or death situation, then you got no choice but to, you know, retaliate. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
survival of the fittest, isn't it? That's what they call it.
Yeah, I think revenge is more of a thing like after the fact, where long after the fact you still feel like a person deserves to suffer because they hurt you, and when the situation's long past. And whereas I think
Yeah.
self-defense always happens at the time when somebody's doing something, you have to defend yourself.
Yeah, you have this
That's a
thing
good
in the
point.
you have this thing in the United States, don't you, George, called crimes of passion, where someone might have killed someone out of like anger, like if they've like had an argument with someone, then they lose their temper, and then you know they get too aggressive, use a weapon or whatever, killed someone, then regretted it after and tried to cover up their crime or whatever.
I mean, you
Right, and
could.
that's
Oh,
naturally where our. Go ahead, Anthony.
oh no, sorry, it's Karen.
Well, yeah, Jamie, that's good because you know that reflects our understanding of the situation. Basically, like, you know, because, you know, crimes of passion, you know, people are not always in control of the kinds of emotions that, you know, sometimes situations evoke. And so there has to be an understanding, you know, just at every level. I mean, this is at the small everyday level of interaction, and at more uncommon, you know, situations. So again, but I think what the key thing is, like the perspective. In other
Hmm.
words, like we can see that, like, we're going to react to someone because they of their free will did something, and, you know, then we're filled with malice and, you know, just like ill intent toward them. Or we can see that, oh, wait a minute, like, if a person did something wrong, sometimes punishment is a deterrent to their doing the wrong again. So it's kind of like, you know, it's from a more socially beneficial, even personally beneficial motive.
Yeah, but the hedonic principle means that people are going to try and avoid confrontation whenever they can, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people out there who just don't like fighting, you know what I mean? They don't like violence, so they'll try to avoid, you know, a situation from getting out of hand, you know?
Yeah, the pain side of things. I mean,
Yeah, because no one likes pain, yeah.
they like the pleasure to avoid the pain and stuff. Like George was saying the other day about it.
So again, let's focus though on, like, you know, the rationality part of this. In other words, like, forgiveness is about morality. You know, everybody's imperfect. We forgive others and ourselves because we recognize that fact. So, but like, when we understand that what we do isn't fundamentally up to us, you know, it's our unconscious, our genes, our upbringing, all these factors over which we don't have control, then all of a sudden, you know, this kind of quote unquote forgiveness, you know, is rational. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the rational, logical thing to do. I think that's a point that we need to, like,
Yeah,
stress. In other words, like, because, like, a lot, I mean, like, you know, morality has guided civilization for several thousand years through religion and now through the legal system and all. And it is, you know, it is effective to a great extent in molding proper behavior. But I believe that to the extent people understand that, you know, revenge and blaming and all that would be undesirable from a rational standpoint, I think that'd be an even stronger motivation to understand and forgive.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your position? I mean, your position on the death penalty is you don't support it, do you, George?
Um, no, I don't, because again, well, basically because the person, you know, isn't really responsible for what they did. And, like, sometimes if it could be shown to be a deterrent, then fine, that would be a reason. But I believe the evidence has demonstrated that that's not the case, that it's just not a deterrent. So it just doesn't make sense. It seems to be an act of vengeance
Yeah. And that's
rather than an act of reason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because on the Penn bullshit show, in this one episode, he compared statistics from states with the death penalty to states without the death penalty, and surprisingly enough, states without the death penalty had the less problems involving murder, didn't they, overall?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think
Yeah,
rationality.
they found stuff like that.
Okay.
Carry on.
yeah. Well, I agree with George that there's really no reason for the death penalty, because it doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it acts as a deterrent either. It really doesn't. If it did, maybe, but it just seems, yeah, like it's all about revenge. That
Yeah.
everyone who has supported the death penalty that I've ever known who said they supported it, they were a free will believer. They believed that these people deserved to die because they sinned, whatever, you know. And so that's been the only argument for the death penalty, and it's one based on a false belief. So find no credibility in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you commit murder, you're still going to get arrested anyway after the evidence is put forward. You know what I mean? So.
And the thing is, with this death penalty over in America and stuff, or with different parts of the state, because it's not in all the states, it's just in. I think they got it in Texas. I know they got it in Texas. They've got the death penalty over there. But I've noticed, like, it doesn't really help the situation. If a person is unstable, they're going to still kill some person,
Exactly.
whether that death penalty is there in the first place or
Exactly, because psychopaths just don't care. It's been known in neuroscience. Sam Harris knows this. A psychopath will most likely think that they're either going to get away with a crime. There's actually psychopaths who thought that it wouldn't get caught in there, George.
Say that again?
There's actually psychopaths that.
Jamie, I didn't hear the last.
Sorry, no, I was talking about the thing with neuroscience, right? There's psychopaths who generally believed that they wouldn't get caught for their crimes.
Oh yeah, no, I know. And so like, but there are reasons, you know, why they guys talk. I gotta like,
Yeah.
there are reasons why they, you know, have these kinds of beliefs, and I think if you reach them early enough, I think you can condition them to think otherwise.
Yeah. Here's the deal. Basically, having a death penalty as a deterrence doesn't actually work, because if people are crazy enough to do these crimes and kill people and stuff anyway, they're crazies. So it's not like they're going to be a logical person who's going to like, oh, well, I don't want to do this because I'll get killed if I do it. And you've got these people who they go and shoot a bunch of other people, then shoot themselves. So then, but notice that, and that's so what's so weird about it is there's stuff like that the death penalty, whether it's legal or illegal, would not change the situation whatsoever.
Yeah, because generally speaking, criminals are not very smart, are they, George? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like revenge, for instance. Yes, it is rational, revenge and stuff, but sometimes it can be out of control. I mean, it cannot be sometimes in your control of you doing it. Say if someone kills a family member, right, and you go and kill that person, it might actually continue. You might get that person, but it doesn't mean that your mind thinks it's over. It could still think you're still over, still doing that, killing that bloke. So you're going to kill someone else that is actually like him. So you become like a vigilante stuff to help people. But then vigilantism.
Yeah, if you get revenge on someone, if you kill that person who killed someone in your family, then someone in their family might want to come after you. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it comes round into a circle, and then no one gets anywhere except bloodshed.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. That's the reason why revenge is not helpful, because then it just really leads to more and more killing.
Yeah. It's just
nuts. And then innocent lives get involved as well in that.
Yeah.
That is the importance of our message. Yep. That is why, you know, our work is so important. It basically allows people to understand the rationale for behaving more intelligently, with more regard, not just toward others, but toward themselves.
Yeah, and people who are more intelligent and more educated are going to be less likely to do crime in the first place because they're going to see that it doesn't get them what they want anyway.
Yeah, because we have
Yeah.
this thing called the scientific method, where if you commit a crime, the chances are you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get caught for it sooner or later. So the educated and smart people usually do their best to stay within the law, don't they, George?
Actually, it does get serial killers in
Yeah.
certain places, gets them in jail, right next to Big Bob.
Big Bob, who's that?
Yeah. The one is gonna fuck you in the ass.
Oh man.
I
Yeah.
mean, the thought that you're gonna get raped in prison should be enough to deter you anyway. You know what I mean, George?
Yeah, and yet for some
Yeah, but again, like, then we're back to the ideas like the deterrence for whatever reason isn't complete. That we have to go to the fundamental causes why a person might not be deterred from doing something, even if the threatened punishment is quite
yeah,
severe.
and that's the thing is that ultimately it should be prevention of the crimes in the first place, which should always be our main focus. Because I don't think that you can deter people just through threat that they'll go to jail or that they'll get the death penalty. Those things aren't very effective deterrents if
Yeah.
people want to do something strongly enough, they won't be deterred by threats. So the only
So
way,
you need education, don't you?
yeah, you need to keep them from wanting to from wanting to do the crime in the first place. That's the way to go.
And I've
Exactly.
got a solution for that as well to stop people going to jail. Why don't they set up an organisation where they get a prisoner and they send them to like another place like looks like a prison, and get kids sent there for a day out just to see what it's like in prison with a fucking serial killer. I mean, that would be something to scare them. Just not to bring a serial killer in there to kill them all, but get someone to pretend they're a serial killer, just to give them that motivation not to go in there.
How does one
Uh,
pretend to be a serial killer anyway?
uh,
I don't know. I mean, you got drama and acting and stuff, and a lot of people can put on really good fucking faces and stuff.
and that type of thing's it's not a good thing to show kids, man. Come on.
No, just to scare them and shit.
Well,
I
we
mean,
were been talking about how fear really isn't that great of a deterrence against crime.
No, the best way to do it is to educate them. Like tell kids it's wrong to bully. Tell kids it's not right to steal. Or kill or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're going to do a crime eventually anyway, they're going to eventually do it, aren't they? I mean, it's programmed in their head to do it.
I mean, there's this thing in the Bible, right? I'm gonna quote it, right? But I'm not a religious person. I'm just saying that this is what's actually in the Bible, right? Don't do to others what you don't, what you wouldn't want done to yourself. That's what's in the
The
Bible.
golden rule, as it's called.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. See, that's the thing is if kids
Guys,
yeah. What, George?
I'm sorry, guys, something has come up. I've got to leave the call. I'm sorry, something's come up that I got to get going. But it's been a great podcast so far. So I'll talk to you guys hopefully tomorrow too.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thanks,
later, George.
thanks guys. Thanks, Chandler.
All right.
Thanks, Anthony. Bye, Jamie. Bye bye.
All right.
Right,
Okay,
how long's
so-
left of the podcast?
Okay, we've got about 5.5 minutes. But I wanted to respond to what Jamie was saying about the golden rule. Basically, it's do unto others as you have them do unto you, or don't do unto others as you don't want them to do to you.
Yeah.
But if kids were all taught that idea rather than being taught revenge, because some of them are taught revenge,
Yeah.
they're taught that by violence in movies and TV shows about people.
Said it all solves problems and shit.
Yeah, because it really doesn't. But just think about it. You
There are some
realize,
good things in the Bible, but just not a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff in there. I mean, it's not
Mm,
stuff that you can't find other sources, of course, anyway, you know.
yeah.
But how many Christians actually live by the golden rule? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the
Well,
problem.
I'm not Christian myself. I'm just quoting the good part from it. Don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself because, well, you don't
Yeah.
want to feel pain, do you?
And
Well,
it's
yeah,
like
nobody wants to feel
oh,
pain. Yeah, what, Anthony?
oh, right. It's like, I mean, I've read a little bit about, say, the Quran a little bit, right? And there's this little post in here about a bloke who rapes a woman. Now, she can forgive that rapist of raping her and stuff, but he has to marry her or he can forgive her and stuff. And I think, to be honest, that kind of like perspective view of our free will, it gives us a choice whether to help, um, like to forgive or to actually don't forgive.
It's yeah, I'm not quite following that one. Um, so
Because I read it in the Quran a while going back, and it was like a part in it. It says like if a rapist rapes you, right? Basically, you can marry. You got to marry that rapist in that way.
yeah, you know what? The Bible contains something similar to that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, something about a man raping a woman, and then he has to marry her or something or
Or
whatever.
she can forgive him and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that the Bible says anything about forgiveness about that, but maybe the Quran does. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's still very weird. But ideally, we don't want anybody to be raping anyone anyway, so we have to
Yeah.
to prevent that. But
Yeah. Yeah. We have to put all that off like into emotions and stuff. I mean,
yeah,
no one knows what's gonna happen and stuff to anyone and stuff.
right. So here's the deal, guys, is that we've got the benefit of both because we all don't like pain, and so we can try to teach people to not do bad things because they wouldn't want it done to them. So we can still try to prevent crime, but at the same time, we understand that we don't have a free will and we don't blame people for how they've hurt us in the past. So we've got the benefit of both because we can still do our best to prevent it, but we know that we can't change what's already happened in the past. And we know that these people, they didn't choose to do it, but something had to cause them to want to do something in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think anyway, Jamie?
Sorry, what was you saying?
Oh no, it's what Chandler was on about
No, I didn't hear it properly because I was reading what
about
Felicia
forgiveness and stuff like we have to deter from it and all that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was basically saying that we can forgive people because we understand they didn't have a free will and that they didn't choose to hurt us in the way that they did in the past. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we don't do anything to prevent people from doing bad things. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like that's just it. Is we can still try to educate people, to avoid the causes that teach people to kill and steal and lie and rape and all those things, those bad things that cause pain that we don't like, because none of us like it. And so
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that we have to give up on trying to make a more peaceful, less violent world. Because, you guys, I'm all about that. I'm all about nonviolence and teaching people to not be so mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here as well. I mean, I hate bullies. I think, to be honest, if bullies could see a way of our cause of it, of why we have no free will, then I suppose in one way it would stop them from doing the violence in the first place.
Yeah, I think it would because they would no longer be trying to punish you for something that they feel that you did wrong if they weren't blaming you and attributing free will to you in the first place. And so the very message of no free will actually reduces violence in and of itself, which is exactly why I'm promoting it so much. It's not just because it's a cool philosophical concept for esoteric autistic people. It's because it actually helps people and makes there less violence in the world. So that's the main reason I'm part of this podcast.
Yeah, and then I wouldn't have got my ass kicked in the first place if my bully and stuff didn't bully the shit out of me.
Yeah, but the thing,
Yeah.
yeah, but the thing is, the thing is with bullies, they're not very intelligent, are they? Because if they were intelligent, I mean, why would they be picking on people for liking the TV show, or picking on people for what they wear, or you know, their
Oh,
sexuality and stuff, or
Yeah.
if they're autistic or whatever.
Or
Yeah.
if they got a fetish or something.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing is that bullies aren't very smart. And that's just it. We just understand that these people lack intelligence and we don't take it so personally. you know? Well, anyway, guys, we've been talking. Well, I think it's time to end this podcast, but it's actually been great, and I might have to go back and listen to it just because I missed so much. It went by so fast. I'm kind of lost. Yeah. Okay, so you've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion with Chandler Klebs, Anthony Bishop, Jamie Soden, and George Ortega. We'll see you in the future. Bye.